Hi, everyone. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police for the town of Danville, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we are here to make people's lives better, and we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. We're going to kick off our series on the annual report. This is something that can be found on the town's website, and this is something that's put out every year by the Chief of Police, and we put this out because it gives us a good picture of what we look like year over year, services provided, and all of that. So we're going to go a few weeks over this, and then we'll jump right into our wildfire preparedness segment. If you want to come down and join us, we've got a great opportunity. We actually had a couple of people drop out of the class, so we have more space. I would really encourage you to come down. See if we can get this to actually jump up. It's our Citizens Academy. It starts March 22nd. It runs 7 weeks. If you want information on that, or you want to just sign up, go ahead and sign up, fill it out, and send it to Sergeant Rangham, and we'll get you signed up. The FEMA date has been extended. So the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center is going to be on for another week, going through next week, and it's open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. all days of the week. And so if you are working with FEMA, or you need some of these state agencies and you need their assistance, go by and check them out, and they will help you. Want to remind everybody the Diablo Road is going to be closed. This is a pretty significant road in town. It's going to be Diablo Road, and it's going to be closed between Alameda, Diablo, and Avenida Nueva, and it's going to start on March 23rd and run through April 13th. So that is a very significant closure. We're asking people do not go through the Diablo Road community. If you are heading towards that direction, what we'd ask you to do is instead go all the way around to Crow Canyon Road, or go down to Camino Tasajera and Sycamore and come in and out that direction. That will be a full 24/7 closure. And we're doing that. And they timed it with the spring breaks to try to reduce the congestion there. So we were thoughtful in how we did it, but we want to get it done as quick as we can so that the inconvenience is as little as possible to the community. And if we want to look at the map here, you can see it's that red or kind of pink section between Alameda, Diablo, and Avenida Nueva on Diablo Road. So if you are coming from the east, we want you to take Camino Tasajera to 680. And if you're coming from the west, go 680 El Cerro to Camino Tasajera, and that'll be your workaround. That's how you'll get through that. This is a live show. So if you have questions or comments, go ahead and just throw them in the chat, and I'll make sure that we get to you. Yuri and Bob, hi. Thank you for tuning in and commenting. But I do want to ask a quick question. You know, we've got a lot of potential rain coming up. Based on all forecasts, it's going to be a lot less than before, but we are putting messaging out there, and we want to make sure that you're aware. Help me out with this though. If we do get an incident where we have to close a road, we will put out a NIXL alert that says roads are closed. Usually we kind of cut that off in the night. What we don't want to do is we don't want to buzz 18 or 19,000 cell phones at 2 in the morning. So we tend to do it during the hours of the day where people are normally awake. So unless it's an absolute emergency, we don't want to wake up 18,000 people for an event that will only affect the few drivers that are actually out at 2 in the morning. So my question to all of you is, that is how we handle crisis communications when it comes to road closures. Is that a good thing, or would you prefer the second we find out that a road is closed that we put it out? Typically, if we find out the road's closed at 2 in the morning, what we'll do is we'll actually put something out on NIXL at about the 5:30 time period, 6 o'clock, to try to catch the commuters as they're leaving. And we hope that doesn't wake too many people up, but gives you some information should you go. So let me know in the chat. Do you want the NIXL alert at 2 in the morning for road closure, or do you want us to use reasonable hours on when we put that information out? All right, so we can be prepared for our hazards. We've got wildfire season coming up. I know it's raining. I know it doesn't seem like we should be worried about this, but this is the time to prepare. Download the FEMA All Hazards Guide. Sorry, I'm just going to turn the radio down. Download the FEMA All Hazards Guide. This will help you prepare now so that should one happen, you can go and survive during. And then in that aftermath, you know, there's going to be some things that you want to do with gas lines and things like that that will help you do better. And we can look at some of the excerpts from the wildfire guide here. it just gives you some quick tips. It's really something you should print out, put it in a drawer. And in addition to that, you want to sign up for our community warning system. That's through the sheriff's office. There's a link in the description to the website. You can also go and download the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. This is where you can get all the information on how to keep your home prepared, how to set up zones so that you have a defensible space, and so that you can have kits and plans for all of the things that are unique to you, because your family may be different than mine, and we all have different needs, and we want to make sure that we plan accordingly. There was a question in here about Nixle. So if you wanted to sign up for Nixle, it's really simple. So get your cell phone out, and all you have to do is in the text messages where you send a new text message. So it looks something like that. In the top where it says 2, just put 888-777. So 888-777. And then in the message box, instead of saying like, hey, I'll be home late, put your zip code. So 94526, 94506, 8283 for our San Ramon friends, 05, 07, any of those numbers, wherever you're at, just put that. And you can also put them for me. If I've got family or friends in Walnut Creek or Pleasanton, I put those as well. And that way I can get alerted. All right. So download those. I'm going to check the chat real quick and see if so Yuri says that seems appropriate. Bob, I was responding to you. Thank you for letting me know to publish that Nixle. And if you're watching this afterwards, I'm going to monitor this because that's an important question to us. So Dina makes a good observation. Now Dina is different than this guy. So Dina puts, for your question, I'm indifferent. I set my phone to off when I'm asleep, so I won't hear it either way until I'm awake. Thanks for asking. So me, I actually, I've been on call for about 18 years of my career. So almost all of it, it seems, between investigations and SWAT and different administrative positions. So if someone calls me at 2 a.m, it's usually really important. And so I have to leave my ringer on and all that. And sometimes I, maybe once a week or every other week, I get a phone call in the middle of the night. And so Dina, that's a long way of saying I can't wait till I can put it on Do Not Disturb. Marty Fairchild says, thank you so much for expediting the sidewalk repair near Bridges Restaurant. I really appreciate all you've done for the town. Well, okay, so I don't think I did anything for that one, so I've got to give the kudos to our maintenance staff. Last night during our the presentation of the annual report, I can't give our town maintenance staff more kudos. I mean, they are a group of truly professional people. Those are the ones that you'll see driving around in the pickup trucks. They wear light blue shirts, and they clean and fix absolutely everything in town. We had catastrophic rains New Year's Eve through the early part of January, tons of potholes in there, and they were the ones that facilitated and made sure our roads got backup standards. It seemed like it was pothole after pothole, but they were making sure that they were getting taken care of. So Marty, I will make sure to pass that on. All right. Let's take a look at crime. As always, communitycrimemap.com, you can go and find out what crime looks like in your neighborhood. You can also find out who is on your sexual registrant list there as well. And you can set up alerts so that if any of that data changes, you'll get an alert saying, hey, there was a traffic stop in your neighborhood. There was a crime in your neighborhood. And you'll get an alert right to your email. So that's on communitycrimemap.com. February 27th through March 5th. So for our collisions, we're actually going to look. I'm going to have our traffic officers do an analysis because we've been seeing too many hit and runs, and as we'll cover later on during the annual report in the future weeks, that is one of those that has gotten a little out of whack. So we had 2 injury collisions, 1 property, and 3 hit and run reports. On the 27th, we had an injury collision on Camino Tasajara near Jasmine Way. On the 28th, we had a non-injury collision on Diablo Road near Alameda Diablo. On the 1st, we had a hit and run on East Prospect. That was in the downtown area. And then we had another downtown hit and run on the 2nd over on Railroad. On the 4th, we had a hit and run on Sage Hill Court. And then on the 5th, we had an injury collision on the 1200 block of Camino Tasajara. That's sometimes affectionately known as Old Camino Tasajara. And that's what we had there. So that's not a great week for accidents. I realize that some of those accidents are in the areas that we've been aggressively enforcing speed violations. I don't have the cause of the collision because the report isn't completed for the Camino Tasajara collision. But you can rest assured that we will be looking at that and seeing if there's any adjustments that we can make And look forward to tomorrow, because I wasn't able to put it in the show here, but one of our traffic officers sent me a readout from his LiDAR for a speeder on Camino Sahara, and you won't believe the speed. So look forward to that on Facebook tomorrow. But really encourage everyone that you know to please slow down. Please get off your phones and really watch what you're doing on the road. We know that speed, turning movements, inattention, and stoplights and stop signs, those are the factors that we see causing the majority of our collisions. So please encourage people to pay attention. All right, let's look at crime. And hi, Sue. I saw your good afternoon. Let's look at crime. February 27th, March 5th. Our crime, I don't like necessarily saying it looked good, because if you are one of the 4 victims, it didn't feel good. But this isn't a bad week. Three very minor thefts and 1 vehicle theft. On the first, we had a stolen vehicle from Danville Oak Place, and it was recovered later that evening. Also on the first, we had a theft of a license plate from a vehicle on Blemmer Road. And we don't know exactly where that occurred, but we always take those reports because it's important to get those plates listed as lost or stolen. On the first, we also had another theft of property. And this one was interesting. It was from an unlocked vehicle on Rubicon Circle. So that's right here near the police department and the high school. And where the property was taken from, we also discovered some stolen mail that had been stolen from Alamo. So we recovered that mail and returned it to the owner up in Alamo. And then we went several days with no crime, which was awesome. On March 5th, we had a theft of mail from Peters Ranch Road. And so you can see these aren't crimes of the century, but the bottom line is we know that if we pay attention to these little things, if we work to try to solve them, if we use our ALPR, if we swab that vehicle for DNA, if we can take those investigative steps and solve them, then we can reduce overall crime. And we don't want these little crimes to turn into big crimes. We don't want any criminal to think that this is a good fishing hole. So we do work hard on those. And so Christina Rouse says, are the perpetrators local or people from out of town typically? So Christina, I'll say that I don't have the statistics on it, but I do review all of our arrest reports. And later on when we do search warrants and we end up making arrests after the fact, I do notice that there are a fair amount of our theft cases are generated from suspects that come from out of town. That said, we do see in-town thefts as well. We see some that have stolen catalytic converters. We've seen some where they're thefts from our stores. So kids and alcohol, that tends to be one that I see that's a local-esque kind of crime. But yeah, we do see quite a bit from out of town. And I think that was why when we set up our ALPR, the camera system, initially back in 2015, we decided to use a perimeter approach. And that way we could capture all the vehicles coming into town because we knew that would be the most fruitful. Connie Conway says, stolen vehicle recovered locally. It was not recovered locally. It was recovered in the county, but it was not recovered locally. It was recovered outside of the Danville area. All right. So this annual report, this is, like I said at the top of the show, this is something that we put out every year. And it is a way for me to present the work that the police department and really the community, all of you, have done to keep Danville safe, because you see it at the beginning of every show when we cover the Pelian principles. The police are the people and the people are the police. All of us have the same responsibility to keep Danville safe. We're just simply the ones that carry it out full time. So we're the ones that you pay to go and take this mission on full time. But we don't do well. I can't report the good things that are in this report without the effort and support of all of you. So that doesn't go unnoticed, and we all love working here because of that support. So that said, let's take a look at the cover. This is awesome. All right, so this is a photo from one of our newest programs. Jason Lukash, who's a second-generation VIP. He works with his father, Ken Lukash, and he formalized a program that we had for a long time, and it's called Cop Cars to the Community. And the interesting thing is that program, what he does is, if you would like, give us a couple weeks notice. If you'd like, we will actually send a cop car with our volunteers out there, kid's birthday party, that sort of thing. If you have a barbecue event, a gathering of some sort, and you want someone to come and speak at it or just socialize, we want to be where you're at. And he formalized that program, and it's really good. And check this out. This is the interesting thing. Look at it. Look in the kid's hand. He's actually got a citation in his hand. So if that's not a future cop, I don't know what is. But very good picture, and it highlights one of the programs that we're happy to see out there. We try very hard as your Danville police not to just drive our cars up and down the street, not to just hang out here in the station, but be out in the community with all of you. we know that that gives us the opportunity to explain to all of you what it is we do, and also give you the opportunity to tell us, hey, you're doing great here, but we need help and support here, here, and here. You can fix and you can guide us on how we can do our job. And I think it's through that guidance that we do well. So Christina says, yes, I want to sign up for this. So I'm curious, okay, so I know you said this, but I'm going to actually repitch one more thing to you here real quick. Cause it sounds like you're fairly well engaged. We actually have our Citizens Academy coming up, March 22nd. What I encourage you to do is also sign up for that. We've got spots available. Christina, we'd like to see you there. Connie, just jump in and we'll see. It's every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. It goes for 3 hours, 7 weeks. And then it goes 2 weekends where we bring you out to the range and we let you drive the cars and we do some use of force scenarios where you actually get immersed in the scenario. You are the police officer. And so you will get a firsthand look at the tools and techniques that we use to train, so that we know that our officers are well equipped and well trained when they hit the field. But also you'll get a little peek about what it's like to be an officer and some of the hazards and the struggles that we face. All right. So make sure to do that. And Christina says her schedule won't allow it. So I'll tell you this, Christina, and I'm glad you actually brought that up. A lot of people, we realize 7 weeks is a commitment for the Citizens Academy. We also realize that not everyone's going to make every class, and that's okay. If you can make, 60, 70% of the class, then we're good. And that's good. And then a lot of people, what they do is on the next session, they'll just drop in on something they missed. And that's good. But it would be enough to get you the experience. We realize it's long. Believe it or not, it used to be one Saturday and that was it. That was the whole Citizens Academy. It was one day. And it was actually at the request of all of our residents that would go through. They were saying, I want to hear more information on this. I want to meet these people. I want to see these things. And everybody was asking for more time and a deeper dive into what the police department did. And it slowly grew. It went to like 4 to 5 weeks. It went to 6 weeks. And I remember when I took it over, there were a couple of residents that came in, and they came in from like Salt Lake and out of the area, really good Danville residents. And they're like, hey, we think you ought to take us out to the range and do this use of force stuff. And we're like, that's a pretty good idea. So we brought that. So we listen to the people that come in, and that's why it goes. And I'll tell you this, by about the halfway point, everyone in the classroom always says, I can't believe we're almost done. We'd like to come more. And that, from a sales standpoint, that's actually where we pitch our program to become a volunteer here. And so we've got a whole host of volunteers. I talked about Jason Lukash. He's our cars to the community. He works with his father, Ken Lukash. So we've got 2 generations of VIPs here. It's great. We've had husbands and wives volunteer here. Very awesome, great environment. And it's one of the best ways that you can give back to your community. There was a question. Connie says, do you take teens too? For our Citizens Academy, it's 18 and over. And so we've had mothers and sons, and we've had fathers and sons, and we've had husbands and wives. But we do offer one because we want to make sure it's age appropriate. And we know if we're talking with adults that we can talk in more specific terms, and we can cover content that's appropriate for adults. And so what we do is we have a teen one that is for high school kids. And then we usually offer a 1-day class for middle schoolers. And frankly, that's just because of the amount of attention that we can keep with our middle school. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that the content is age appropriate. And we just kind of want to open up the kids to say, this is what your police department does to serve you, because we don't just serve the moms and dads, right? We serve the kids as well. And we can also get their feedback. All right. So let's move back over to what crime looks like. All right. So I'm going to cover, this is for 2022, but this is actually a 30-year look back. So if you can look, that crime several times is well over 750 reported Part 1 crimes. A Part 1 crime is a rape, robbery, homicide, or aggravated assault. That's not simply a push. That's something that causes significant harm to the person. Also included in Part 1 crimes are auto theft. So when someone takes a car, burglary. So when someone enters any structure, a house, a business, or even a backyard shed to take, to steal or commit any felony. And then it also includes arson, and then every theft. So that could be the candy bar, or that could be $80,000 worth of equipment from the back of a pickup truck. It includes all thefts. So let's take a look. 3 different times it was well over 750 points. And last year, or 2021, we were at 280 total. And then in 2022, it rose to 289. That is astronomically low. I mean, if you looked at that trend line, it was just going down. And that's fairly consistent, but a little bit steeper than what we see on the national scene. So Danville is doing absolutely fantastic. And as much as I'd love to give the kudos to the officers that work here, because I know they work hard, they really work hard on the prevention, on the investigation. I know there's a lot of effort that goes in. Really, it has to do with the community itself. It has to do with all of you. So you have to know that the way that you interact with your community members, the way that you work through this environment that we're in, and the culture that you create actually leads to a safer community. Many times I would go to the high school and I would talk to kids, and I would just pose a simple problem. I said, you're walking behind someone and they throw their empty can on the ground. You know, what would you do? You could either do nothing and leave it there and say nothing. You could tell the person, hey, would you please pick that up? Or you could just pick it up and throw it in the trash. Which one would you do? Overwhelmingly, none of them ever said, I would just do nothing, right? Most said they would simply pick the can up. A few would say, hey, can you pick that can up? So that is the culture that's created here. And that's what makes Danville such a great place, because when crooks come here and they see a beautiful community, they don't see the broken windows, so to speak. It becomes harder to commit crime. Crime tends to stand out. So great job to the town. All right. 2022 was a record year for violent crime, record as in low. It is the first year since 1993 and only the second year ever where we had only 10 total violent crimes. We had 5 felony assaults, 5 robberies, no rapes, no homicides. Now, let me tell you this. That doesn't mean that if you were one of those 10 victims, that it felt like a very safe place to be and it didn't feel like a safe place to live. And I want to highlight one thing. Now, on the robberies, so there was 5 of them, and we're going to cover them in greater detail in a later episode, but there were 5. Sometimes a robbery could be at a middle school. It could be where one middle schooler pushes another middle schooler down and then takes their phone by force in fear. That is a robbery. That is not what these were. I don't want to sugarcoat those. These were very violent. Many of them involved guns, and some actually had guns that went off. So those were very violent. I will talk about the successes later in this show, but I will then later detail those robberies out. But no, from a total crime standpoint, last year was very, very good. And that's kudos to all of you. All right, let's look at property crime. So we did see a slight uptick. Like I talked about, went from 280 total crimes to 289. If you look, the biggest jump is the burglary. Look at the trend from 2018, 2019 through 2022. Now consider that 2020 and 2021 were pandemic years. Lots of people were home, and frankly, it's really challenging to break into a home when it's occupied. Most people that break into homes are looking for homes that are unoccupied. So in 2021, we did see a very low, and I believe that is a record low burglary rate, and it did pop back up to around the average for this 5 years. On a 10-year average, it's actually still down about 20%, because we were, I think 2015, we had 119 burglaries. So we're way down from there, but we are seeing it creep up. We are analyzing those burglaries, and we are trying to see what it is that those are telling us. All right, so let's look at the comparison. So if we look at last year, our Part 1 violent crimes, like we said, are way, way low. 52%, over a 50% reduction from 21 in 2021 to 10 in 2022. Burglaries, this is our steep increase, and that is an increase of just over 60% from 26 in 21 to 43 in 2022. Total reported Part 1 crime, slight uptick from 280 to 289. And then let's take a look at what it looks like over a 10-year. And this is over a 10-year period. So our total Part 1 violent crime is down 42.5% over that average. 10 reported incidents, down from 17.4 on the average. Burglaries, like I said, way down, 33.9%, down from 65 average to 43. And then total reported Part 1 crime down 21% over the 10-year average. So by all reasonable metrics, Danville is a very, very safe place to live, very safe place to raise your family, and we do extremely well. All right. So we always talk about the best thing that we can do is spend all of our effort preventing crime, right? We want those numbers to be low. And I do report out that the best day for law enforcement is when we write no citations and we take no one to jail, right? If there's no citations, that means people aren't creating an environment where someone could get hurt in a car crash. If we take no one to jail, that's great because that means someone hasn't been a victim. Well, we realize zero crime is not a realistic goal. It's where we shoot for all the time. We want to prevent as much crime or all crime, but we realize it's going to happen. And that's why we still maintain a very robust investigative team. We've got professional and expert investigators, and our patrol staff is actually very well equipped to handle major investigations as well. And I think that is reflected in our case clearance rate. A case clearance rate is the amount of cases that are solved. So we have the reported rate, that's the total crime, and then we'll have how many of those that we solve. And a case is considered solved when an arrest is made, or there is the suspect is known, we know where they live, and there are circumstances outside of our control that had that not been there, we would have made the arrest and forwarded that case to the DA. So those are solved cases. So let's take a look. We didn't have any rapes or homicides, so we were zero on that. On the robberies, we had 5. We solved 4 of the 5, so we solved 80% of them. The national average is 28. So we're nearly 3 times that average for solving. On the assaults, we had 5, we solved 4. That's 80%, and we're just under double that at 46 for the national average. Burglaries, we had 43 total. We solved 34% of them, which is over double the national average. And then thefts, this is one where we tend to not have as big of a gap. We had 210 reported. We solved 21%, and that's slightly above the 15% national average. For stolen vehicles, we were able to solve 41% of the 26 that were reported, and that's well above the 12%. Now, when you look at those numbers, when I see high percentages of solved, that tells me that the investigative tools that we have in place are good to solve those. Now, when I look at the thefts and a lot of them are unsolved, if you know that's the case, what is the best way to attack that problem? It really applies to all of them, but knowing that thefts are harder to solve and we solve them at a lower rate, the best thing we can do is actually prevent them. So that means when we park our cars, we're not leaving our phones sitting in them. When we park our cars, we're not actually leaving our keys in the car. Believe it or not, that's how, this is a wild guess, but from reading all the reports, I read every vehicle theft report that comes through, over 90% of them have had their keys left in the car, or they were in an area where like they were on the kitchen counter so someone could come out and steal the car. So overwhelmingly, we know that there's preventative things that we can do as community members that will reduce this. Here's the thing. When I give these prevention tips and I say, lock your property up, don't let it be visible, I never want it to come off as though I am shaming all of us, the people that are potential or victims in this community. 100% of the responsibility for these crimes rests solely on the shoulders of the person committing it. I get that. That's where the responsibility lies. I simply look at the data, I look at the reports, and then I report it to you so that I can tell you how you may prevent from being the next thief. So that's the purpose of me doing that. It is not to shame anyone or make people feel bad. All right, I'm going to check the chat to see if there's any questions. I do check both Facebook and YouTube during the show. I don't see anything on YouTube. And it looks like Facebook, we're all caught up. So let me throw my reminders out. So if you have a quick question, get to it, and I'll get to it at the end of the reminders. The Diablo Road will be closed. Please, this is a hard closure, 24/7, both lanes. There will be no passing this. And this is going to happen from March 23rd. So it is coming up right around the corner. March 23rd through April 13th, full road closure, both ways, Diablo Road, Avenida Nueva, and Alameda Diablo. We're asking people to avoid the area. Here's a map. If you're coming up from the Blackhawk area, we'd ask that you go down to Comunidad Sahara because you will not be able to cross Diablo Road. If you're coming up from the freeway, instead of taking Diablo Road, we'd ask that you take the Comunidad exit and head up that way instead. Please download the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. This is a good way to stay prepared should a critical event happen. They don't happen that often, but when they do, they can be very catastrophic, and you can do things today to prepare for tomorrow. So we'd ask that you please download these. It includes earthquakes, storms, wildfires, believe it or not, novel pandemics, and that was prior to the pandemic. So there was actually a page on that. So there is a lot of information in there, things that we as residents may not think of, but it's in that checklist. Go ahead and sign up for our community warning system. That's at the sheriff's website, link in the description. And you can also download the Contra Costa County Residents Guide to Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation. We do have our Citizens Academy. That's coming up. It's coming up in a week and a half, so 2 weeks. So we'd ask, sign up. We had a couple of people drop out, so we do have space. If you think you're going to miss a class or two, please don't worry about that. This isn't one of those where if you don't attend every class, you're not going to get your certificate. You know, this is about collaboration. This is about relationships. This is about us getting to know all of you, you getting to know the entire team that works here, and seeing what it is that we do to safeguard everyone's lives, rights, and property. So please come join us on that. All right. I'm looking at the chat. I don't see anything. So that means I must have hit all the questions. I want to make sure I got them all. Okay. Yeah, it looks like I got them all. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And we'll be back next Wednesday. We're probably going to have another 3 weeks of the annual report update. So we'll go line by line. So if you want to know what 2022 looked like and what programs we have in Danville, keep joining us each week for the next 3 weeks. We'll run through that. And then we're actually going to go through that wildfire preparedness guide, and we're going to roll right into some of those FEMA all hazards checklists. So we're going to go through about 5 weeks, 6 weeks of that so that we really make sure. My hope is that once we finish that, everyone that watches and all of your friends will have a nice go bag. They'll have plans for their kids, people with functional needs. They'll have plans on how they're going to maybe get them out earlier, plans for how they get their car out of the garage, all of those things that we may not think about on a daily basis. We'll go through and we'll think about it. We'll be ready, and then we'll put that thing to bed, and we're going to enjoy the summer because it's going to be a good, hot, fun summer. All right. That's all I have. That means we're 10:10, which means we're off duty, but I'm always 10:8 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville.